What is up, CSGs? In this video, I'm going to talk about why the Rockets are right in pursuing a star, trying to draft a big man and a shooter, and I'm going to tell you which one is the most important thing that they do right now. Tap in, enjoy. The Rockets Chop Shop is your one-stop shop for all your basketball needs, for highlights, analysis, podcasts. We do it all here at the Rockets Chop Shop. Make sure you hit the like button on the videos that you watch if you enjoy them. Hit the subscribe button to get notifications from all the great drops that we have on the channel. Also, you can visit the Chop Shop merch store and get you some of the swaggiest gear in the Houston Rockets kingdom. And if you want, you can always support the channel directly through donations. And if you want, you can support us through our partnerships with our sponsors. The Rockets Chop Shop is made by fans, for fans, and we're going to keep rocking and keep dropping that heat. This is something I know. So the question that has been on a lot of Rockets fans' minds leading up to the draft throughout this offseason is, what should the Rockets do? Now that we know we have the third pick, is it better to draft a big man? Is it better to go get you a shooter? Is it better not to draft? Is it better to trade the pick? There's justification for all of these, but I feel like these are not equal. As you're watching the playoffs right now, once again, I always refer back to the playoffs. The playoffs and the regular season are two totally different forms of basketball. And to me, the playoffs should really inform what you want to see coming out of your team when they start the year. One of the most important things I'm seeing as we are approach the conference finals of the NBA right now for the teams that have made it this far is depth is a priority, shooting is a priority, and definitely defense is a priority. And even if a team isn't an elite defense, being able to play defense in stretches is incredibly important. But the depth part, I think this is the playoffs that has really reflected the importance of having a deep team. I was watching the LeBron James and JJ Redick podcast, my favorite podcast on YouTube right now. And they really, pointed it out that this is the year of the role player. And this just points out the fact that you cannot try to build a team anymore with just a top heavy team. Shout out to the Phoenix Suns being bounced in the first round, being swept. All the Warriors of the world, the LeBrons of the world, those players are so great that they actually trick the NBA into thinking that all you need is to put together one or two or three stars and you're able to win rings. Well, newsflash, that is not historically accurate. There have been players that transcend everything. And I think like the LeBron model of putting him next to Wade have tricked a lot of franchises into thinking that's a form of team building. They're just missing the most important recipe is LeBron in that equation, or Steph, or any of these transcendent players. So we're seeing these big name, big threes, big twos, big me's, whatever it is, go down to what we've seen a trend in the past few years, which is teams that are deep and able to play a good brand of basketball and are balanced in the way they build their rosters. These are the teams that are coming out. And this has been the trend, whether it was Denver last year or what we're seeing this year or prior years before that. Once again, the Warriors and LeBron are exceptions. These are exceptions because all-time great players, right? You're going to have all-time great players. You're going to be in the mix for this. So what does this mean for the Rockets? It means that as we're building this thing out, we don't necessarily have to conglomerate, 3 or 4 all-star players. I know we all wish all the young guys would become all-stars, all NBA, all whatever. But at the end of the day, the Rockets' goal going forward should be how can they put together a team that complements each other and is able to carry the franchise progressively towards becoming a contender. And I think that they are in a great position based on where we are right now. You look at the core six, you look at the vets we have future flexibility with our financials. And then obviously getting the third pick in this draft is a big part of what we're going to do in the future. So it begs the question, what should the Rockets do? What is the right move? Is it for them to draft a player at 3? Is it for them to be able to trade back and draft a player later in the draft? Or is it for them to use that draft pick as a part of an asset package to be able to go get a player like Donovan Mitchell, Mikal Bridges, et cetera, et cetera? So let me try to answer that question. I'm going to go through some stats that really point at some of the things that we're lacking at right now. and see whether we can come to a conclusion. I already made my conclusion, but I'll let you guys know as the video progresses. So to set the table for this, I want to shout out Kelly Eco. He wrote an article a few days ago titled Rockets Draft Notebook 1.0, Options at Number 3, Donovan Mitchell, Questions, and More. A great read on The Athletic. Check it out. The link to that article is going to be in the description of this pod or video if you're listening or watching. And he really goes into different conversations with front office executives in the NBA, some quotes from Rafael Stone, and some things about the Rockets about kind of what they're looking at and what they're trying to do with this draft. Basically nothing, right? We don't get nothing out of Stone. He's a lawyer, so he's going to say a lot of stuff without actually saying anything. So, but I have my antennas up when I hear certain things to try to give me a little insight as to what I think the Rockets are thinking about doing. And I'm not going to lie, I'm pretty pleased at the things that they're saying. So here's a quote from the article where it says, Houston has identified floor spacing and shooting as an area of need this offseason, privately and publicly, and of interest in veteran sharpshooter Malik Beasley, league sources said. Beasley, who was also attracting early interest from Orlando and Golden State, blah, 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 blah. So the rest of that is relevant. I think the first part about them looking at shooting as a priority is what sticks out to me. So when you're thinking about what the Rockets should do in this draft, I fully 100% agree that shooting is the number one priority over anything else. I know there are a lot of people that know that we need a big man. I'm one of them, right? We need a backup big. So to me, that takes off guys like Klingon off my board at number 3. I love Donovan Klingon as a prospect. I would draft him at 9, where the Rockets were. I would draft him maybe at 10, possibly as high as 6 or 7. But in the top 3 and the top 5, I'm not taking a Donovan Klingon, right? I'm not taking a guy like that. But to me, shooting is the primary reason the Rockets were unsuccessful in their season as far as making the play-in or playoffs. I'm going to give y'all a crazy stat that I found out today. Do you know how many teams that rank top 10 in defensive efficiency in the NBA and have not made the play-in or the playoffs since that tournament started in 2019-2020 season? So in 5 years, how many teams have there been that have been top 10 in defense and not made the play-in or playoffs? You want to guess? Only 2. 2 out of the 100 possibilities of combinations of teams, because there's going to be 10 teams from the East, 10 from the West that make the play-in or playoffs every year. Over the 5 years that this has been in action, that's 100 teams. 100 teams have made this postseason tournament, and only one other team that is not the Houston Rockets, because we are one of the 2, has been a team that has been a top 10 defense and not made the play-in or playoffs. That team was the 2019-2020 Chicago Bulls. And if you guys go look at that roster, look at that team, look at that coach, it's a joke, right? So for us to be a top 10 defense and not make the play-in or playoffs, it's largely because of shooting. And shooting is a high premium in the NBA, as I said earlier in the video. Shooting is so important in the NBA that I'm going to read off from the regular season the top teams in three-point shooting percentage. And you just tell me if you see a pattern. Number 1, Phoenix Suns, playoff team. Number 2, LA Clippers, playoff team. Number 3, Denver Nuggets, playoff team. Number 4, Los Angeles Lakers, playoff team. Number 5, New Orleans Pelicans, playoff team. Number 6, Minnesota Timberwolves, playoff team. Number 7, Miami Heat, playoff team. Number 8, Boston Celtics, playoff team. Number 9, Golden State, the only team that did not make the playoffs. Number 10, Dallas Mavericks, playoff team. 11, Oklahoma City, playoff team. 12, Milwaukee, playoff team. Sacramento, non-playoff team. The Knicks actually before Sacramento. So what is the point? The point is three-point shooting is incredibly important in making a push for the playoffs. The Rockets were right there. And I think, to me personally, our three-point shooting is what betrayed us at the end of the day. So if we look at, we're going to look at now some of our shooting offensive stats from Synergy. You can see that where the Rockets rank when it comes to isolation. Our three-point shooting, 23% in isolation, 35% on field goals. That ranks 29th. On threes, off screens, 33%. That ranks 25th in the NBA. In transition, we are shooting 35% on threes, 23rd in the NBA. In spot ups, we are shooting 36.4%, 21st in the NBA. And the lone thing that we are good at is dribble handoffs and all sorts of handoffs, which we shot 41% from 3. And that's 4th in the NBA. And the only issue with this one is look at the frequency there. We only do this 4% of the time. So To me, the handoff issue is a matter of not only the fact that our offensive system is pretty poo. The other part is that we also don't have the horses to be able to run a lot of DHOs. Painting that picture of why I think shooting is the most important thing for this team. So, a lot of the things that also that we lack, obviously, is the big man, the backup big. But in context of what we're trying to do, I want everybody to think about, why do we need a backup big, right? Why do we need a backup big? So, as I said, the Rockets are ranked 10th on defensive efficiency in the NBA. For the most part of the season, until Şengün got hurt, we were top 5, top 6. I think as low as 7, kind of range between 5 and 7. So we were a good defense for most of the season. He got hurt. We played some tough teams, and the defense tanked. And I think also, as I explained earlier during the season, the fact that we were playing with so much speed, pace, and frequency on our offensive tempo really does open us up to be able to score. If you try to play fast, teams are going to score fast. It's just a matter of how that play style works. Shout out to Indiana. So, so we have a adequate defense, right? So to me, the reason the Rockets needed a backup big is not because of defense. Our defense, as I pointed out earlier, being a top 10 defense is perfectly fine and good enough to have gotten us into the playoffs. And historically, we should have been a play-in or playoff team outright this year, having a top 10 defense. Where we failed as a team is on the offensive end, and that's really what came and got us, right? That's really what came and got us. So even to prove the point even more, you look at our defensive play types and shot type ranks from Synergy. On jump shots, the Rockets' opponent field goals were 37%, and three-pointers 34.9%. And that's 1.01 points per shot, which is really good. We were tied for third in the league in guarding jump shots. And when it comes to at the rim, I know that's a lot of things. We need a rim protector. We do need a rim protector, but we don't need one as bad as shooting, because you look at our rim opponent field goal percentage, 59.5%. That's 1.19 shots at the rim, which is less than 2. A shot at the rim, when you make a bucket, a layup, is 2 points. So to have anything that is less than 1.5 is pretty good. This ranks us as 7th in the NBA with Alperen Şengün as your center, right? With Alperen Şengün as your center, your backup 5 being Jabari and Jeff Green for most of the season. Jock Landale came in towards the end. So once again, with a makeshift role of centers, we were able to rank 7th in defending the rim. So once again, defense is not the issue. To me, the reason we need a backup big is for the times where Şengün is not on the court. There's multiple reasons. Number one, rebounding and size, right? Size versatility, being able to guard different types of teams. Like you see the Minnesota Timberwolves being able to play against Denver with double bigs. Now they're facing Dallas I'm recording as this game is going on. You might see one of their bigs get played off the court because that pick and roll game is going to kill them. You're playing the drop coverage. Luka is going to destroy that. He's a different cat than Jamal Murray, who's a DHO merchant, whereas Luka is a PNR merchant. He's going to get in the pick and roll. You play that drop. He's going to have your big man, no matter, even if they're defensive player of the year, in no man's land. We saw this with James Harden and what he did with Rudy Gobert when James Harden was our guard here in Houston, and Capella would rain dunks on his head to the point where the Jazz were basically losing when Gobert was on the court. And they had to make tough decisions. Now, I feel the Timberwolves are going to make those same decisions at some point in time during the series. So the point of having that, a different type of big man, for me, there's 2 reasons. One, it's going to be for when Şengün is on the court. Like I said, our guards need somebody to play off of, right? It's really hard to have guards like Amen Thompson, Aaron Holiday, Cam Whitmore, who are as dynamic as they are, they lack self-creation. Our guys can't dribble, right? Even Jalen Green, if you put him out with the twos, you're not going to just say, Jalen, go out there and cook. He's not Kyrie Irving. He's not Luka. He's more of the Jamal Murray mode. He needs a lot of screens, and he needs a big man that's going to give him a outlet valve for those screens that aren't Jock Landale pick and pop some floaters, right? Or Jeff Green threes, which hit or miss, right? Game to game, that varies. You need something that's more steady. And I think getting a big man that can actually roll to the basket, dunk, that can defend the rim in certain lineups against certain teams is what you need from that backup, right? We don't need to go draft a guy number 3 to bring in for him to play off the bench, because I don't see anybody in this draft that is you're going to put at the 5 that is going to be just the star player. They're going to be bench players. And if you're going to draft a guy at 3, why draft a bench player? Just trade back, draft the archetype, and just plug them in and develop them over time, right? Now, if we're talking about a guy like Sarr, who's the projected number 1 pick, I'm thinking bro is probably going to go first to Atlanta. And what he's going to do, he's not going to be a primary 5. He's too small. You put him out there at 5, he's going to look like Jabari. Teams are going to just bully him. He's too small to play the 5. You're going to put him at the 4, right? He's going to be a kind of a floor spacing, weak side shot blocker, kind of your disruptor. You might let him roam a little bit, use his length and athleticism. I mean, if we had the number 1 pick, I would draft him in a heartbeat because I think he fits on our team instantly, right? And if you bulk him up a little bit as the years go along, he could play a bit of small ball 5. But he's not an option right now. I don't think he's going to slip. So with the 3rd pick, I'm not drafting just a big man that's going to be a backup. That's so stupid, right? That's dumb. That's just not smart. So once again, back to what the needs of the team for the Rockets is. It comes down to shooting. And that's why shooting is going to be the main thing that I think the Rockets are going to be looking at as they move forward. So what type of prospects do I want to draft at the 3 spot? Here's a quote from the article. Kelly says head coach Ime Udoka will attend pro days this week in Los Angeles, getting a closer look at potential green room invites. Before the lottery, Stone had been looking at Zachary Richesher and Tijane Salon and others in Europe. Now, one thing about those 2 kids, that Stone went out to Europe, flew out to Paris to go watch. They're tall. They can play defense and they can shoot, right? And one that is incredibly interesting to me to see as a potential trade back, and I want you guys to check him out, is this Tijane Salon kid. A big ball handler, a guy that could, he could self-create a little bit, has a okay shooting form, not really just a sniper, but he's a decent shooter, so he's not a negative as a shooter. He's 6'10", he's long, and he's athletic. So keep your eye on him. I think that kind of fits the mold of what the Rockets like. And once again, when you talk about shooting, drilling down on that type of player that fits what Ime Udoka wants to do, fits what Rafael Stone likes to draft and what he likes to do. You're looking at those type of guys. You're looking at the Richard shares. You're looking at the Salons, right? You might be looking at a Matas Buzdelis, which was in the article as well as mentioned as Kelly put as one of his top prospects that he thinks the Rockets may like. I'm also with him there. And you think of any prospect that is gonna have the measurables to match, that is gonna have a lot of upside, even though right now the floor is probably low. Right? That is what you get at 3. Whether that's the best thing to do or not, to me, that's debatable. But for me, if I'm going to draft 3, I'm getting one of these young kids that has the measurables and has the upside to become more than what they are right now. Now, if you want to draft for floor, trade back. And this is where I would prefer for the Rockets to do. There's Dalton Neck. There's all these players in the draft that you could draft that are going to provide that shooting that we talked about that the Rockets severely need, as we're struggling on all our shooting metrics. And so big man shooter, to me, priority is going to go to shooter. And if I'm going to draft a shooter, I can draft one further back in the lottery. I don't have to draft a shooter at 3. Now, Reed Sheppard is interesting, right? And the Rockets should monitor everything about him. I'm still worried about his ability to play in the NBA, not as a role player. But once again, if I'm not drafting Brook Lopez at the number 3 spot, I'm not going to go draft a Reed Sheppard type at number 3 either. Which leads me to my last point, which is the possibility of trading the pick for a player. And here's a quote from the article. This is the one that a lot of people were talking about when it dropped. Another possibility if the Rockets were to move the number 3 pick is packaging it with additional assets for a star. Houston is flush with young talent and draft capital that could appeal to teams with elite talent in flux. One player who fits is Cleveland's Donovan Mitchell. The Rockets are among those interested in the 27-year-old and have been monitoring his situation for months. So interesting quote. One, the Rockets have been interested in Donovan Mitchell, and I don't blame them, right? I'm not a big Mitchell fan as far as him on this team. I like him as a player. I've already said this. You guys know my stance on whether we should trade for a player like Mitchell. I personally don't think so, but I understand why the Rockets are thinking like this. If you go back to our chart, when we look at what the Rockets have been doing on offense, in isolation scoring, we are shooting 35% from the field, bro. We're shooting 23% from 3. That's nasty. 0.798 points per possession in isolation scoring. That would give us the 29th rank. So we're damn near last in isolation scoring. What is isolation scoring? That's one-on-one. That's mano y mano. That's go get a bucket, right? And we're not doing good. We're not able to get buckets. We can't close out games. You watch these playoff games. What does it come down to in the fourth quarters? Last 5 minutes. It's not run your favorite action. It's clear out, give the ball to Kyrie, give the ball to Luka, give the ball to SGA, give the ball to Ant, give the ball to Jamal, give the ball to Tatum, give the ball to SGA. Once again, give the ball to Halliburton, to Brunson. Who's your closer? Jaylen Brown. Give the ball to your closer and let him go cook. And the Rockets have not been cooking in those games. Fred can't cook. Jalen Green has not been cooking all season in isolation late in games. Alperen Sengun, he cooks a little bit, but he's not cooking because he's not a perimeter player that could play three-way. You see, once again, with the Jokic thing, it's a guard, it's a wing that got to do it, right? So we don't have that guy right now. We pray and hope it's Jalen Green. But if I'm the Rockets, right, I'm running a franchise that's $1 billion franchise, I'm not going to place all my eggs into the Jalen Green basket. I'm not going to place all my eggs into the Alperen Sengun basket. Not because I don't love these dudes as players, just because I'm trying to run a franchise, right? You're trying to run a franchise and be prudent. So they should flip every stone, turn over every rock, whatever the phrase is, to make sure that they're putting themselves in position to compete in this West that is going to be tough. You are not going to be able to compete if you don't have a closer on your team, no matter how good your team is. At the end of the day, you need a guy that can go get a bucket and shooting 35% from the field in those moments. They got to upgrade that. So if I'm the Rockets, what am I looking at? I'm looking at that pick. I'm looking at possibly some swaps in the future. I'm looking at some of the core and seeing if I am going to make this move, how does it fit the team? Now, this is not what I would prefer, but I think it's justified for the Rockets to be able to do what they want to do with this pick because all of it opens up. At the end of the day, the point of this is to build a contender. Right? The standards for the playoffs and the regular season are not the same. So they have to be able to think realistically about their outlook for the team within the short term and the long term. Now, some hard decisions are going to be made. Really hard decisions. We have so much talent on this team. It's going to just come down to how they fit together. It's going to come down to what the front office wants to do. And honestly, my personal preference is, once again, don't draft that 3. To me, there's not a player there that's going to be left after Sar and whoever else is going to go 2 is gone that you just feel confident about getting. I would trade back. And in the article, Kelly says there are a handful of teams that are interested in trading up. I think it's going to be trading later back. So to me, that means then you may be able to get a player like a Malik Beasley or somebody like that. You may be able to get a player that's a role player, a bench player that can add to your depth. And you hope and pray that your young guys are working out and getting better this summer. And they come in locked in, ready to take that leap. Then you build a team that is 10 deep, right? You got 6 guys that are first round picks. You got some good vets. You add some more vets to this team. And then you see what happens next year. And then once, some of these contracts come off the books next summer, then you can start looking at the Donovan Mitchells of the world. That is what I think they should do. But once again, I just want to make sure my priority ranks for this team is add shooting. And I don't think you don't necessarily have to add it at 3. You could trade back and get it a little bit further back in the draft. Priority number 2 is going to be add shooting via external, whether it's free agency or just saying, or trading for guys. So that's another method to add shooting. And this is for role players. Then after that, adding shooting is going to be adding a big man that can give our guards another look. So when Alp isn't on the court, you have another screener, you have another rebounder, and a vertical threat that opens up a different dimension for the offense. That's going to be the third priority. And lastly, if they have to take a swing on a player that can actually impact winning in the key moments in the playoffs. And to me, if the Rockets follow that algorithm, there is no way they can goof this off, right? There is no way they can goof this off. But y'all let me know, what do y'all think is the most important thing the Rockets need to add this offseason? Is it shooting? Do you think it's a big man? Do you think they should trade for a player right now, or should they wait? Let me know in the comments and in the chat. Appreciate y'all. Keep rocking with the Chop Shop, and we're going to keep dropping that fire.
DJ Candlestick. It's the Chop Not Slap Show.